All right, more Elden Ring talk. And Elden Ring, and when From Software puts out a game, it always brings the conversation back to accessibility. It's a term in gaming that so many people like to use, accessibility. Now, some people would say that accessibility does not equal lack of difficulty or difficulty or something like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, in some cases it actually does. You've blurred the lines. It's one thing to accommodate someone for having some sort of, I don't know, visual deficiency or being able to turn off the fucking screen shake or something. But even on the sense of disabilities, I believe that it's bullshit that people go into certain games expecting that every individual has to be accommodated. I think this is because of the inclusivity movement and how people feel like every single person should be able to access every single thing. And I think that's bullshit. Like I said, I think that's nonsense and people should not be bound by those rules. That does not mean that if you are a person that wants to make those types of video games, and you want to include or consider that persons or those groups of people and those types of people in your video game makeup. More power to you. What I'm rejecting is the fact or the idea that every person or every game developer should do that, or that there's something wrong with them because they didn't do it, as if it's a knock on them. That's bullshit. So you have this guy, Steve Saylor, and this is what he says. He's a blind gamer. I guess he has some visual, probably legally blind. He can see, but not probably to the degree of someone with like 20/20 vision. He has pronouns in the bios as well. Just realized that. And he says, I've sadly requested a refund of Elden Ring. The lack of accessibility for me to enjoy this game and the toxic soul fanboys I've had to deal with this week alone. I've had enough. No game is worth that. Now, it's ridiculous that you would knock the game or say that you don't, because it's largely a single player game. Yeah, it has the summons and stuff, but it's largely a single player game. So how on earth could toxic fanboys ruin your experience? That doesn't even make sense. But let's talk to him. He was talking with another disabled gamer, or a gamer with disabilities. Let's say that right here. This is Steve, and let's listen to what it was that he had to say regarding the accessibility issues with Elden Ring.
Both, like, I appreciate what's there. I love it. Is this an accessibility nightmare as well?
Yes.
For other disabilities? 1,000%.
It's awful.
It's really, awful. It is so, like, it is bad. It is like, it doesn't, and here's just a small laundry list of the things that it doesn't have. No menu narration. The text size is pretty small. The text, the font choice in and of itself is also very difficult to be able to read. The contrast is also difficult to read.
Okay, so the text, how it looks, all of that, he finds it a problem, and that's a knock on the accessibility aspect. So, okay.
There's no subtitle background. There's no way to be able to increase the size of the subtitles. There's no visual indicators for any enemy that's attacking you from behind or from the side.
Okay, so that part right there is why the lines between accessibility and difficulty are blurred. That's the fucking game. Okay? That's the game. That's the game. The game does not give you any visual indication, and it never has. That's not what it does. Why would it? That's the design of it. It's supposed to be that way. So again, as I've mentioned with these types, and other folks who would give all these guys the benefit of the doubt, well, they'll say it doesn't equal difficult. And in a lot of cases, in terms of how they argue, it absolutely does mean difficulty. It absolutely does. You know, Like, it absolutely does. The game, basically, how it's built is that you're not going to get a visual indicator that your enemy is attacking you. That's the point. If you can't see it, you can't see it, and that's your own damn fault. I don't say your own damn fault, but that's the game, how it's designed. So what's the problem? So when you make that, remember, this is the context. He's knocking the game for it. Like, that's a knock on it, and the accessibility that there's no visual indicator that you're about to get attacked by the enemy. Now, some games do give you that, but that's not what From Software does. Why would you knock them for that?
There is also no navigational assistance. There is the way that they describe items in the game, cognitively does not make any sense. The fact that you can skip the tutorial completely by accident because it doesn't take you through the tutorial by default is that's also something that,
again, we're going back to, like, they're conflating the issue, right? So, like, I've said this before. When I talk about accessibility in gaming and why I think it ruins a lot of games by trying to include this demographic, I'm specifically referring to what it is that this guy's talking about with these types of statements, where he wants the game fundamentally changed for him, right? This is one thing to accommodate someone that is, colorblind in a sense and has a particular issue, and they can have a setting to where they can adjust the colors to where it gives them, like, that's obvious. I don't know anybody that has a fucking problem with that. I don't have anybody that has a problem with it. But when you're talking about fundamentally changing the game to accommodate you, that's what I have an issue with. Because, yeah, they don't hold your hand, and this has been why a lot of folks like these types of games. They don't hold your hand, right? They don't hold your hand. The game is what the game is going to be. So they don't hold your hand. And yeah, you could, when you get out of that, when you're in that little tunnel and you're about to get out and in the open world, you could literally walk right past that and not drop down, and you never go see the tutorial. But that's just the way the game's built.
You can completely miss. The fact that also the first boss that you even come across is someone that is technically, as you said, Grant, to me earlier, it's an end game boss, and that's in the first opening area that you
remember, he's talking about this being an accessibility issue. So you cannot say that people don't argue and conflate it with difficulty. Yes, they do. Yeah, it was kind of a troll. They put the big horse dude in the beginning. And all of us, like the hard-headed Souls players, like, fuck this guy, I'm going to go get him right out the gate. And then we spent 3 hours trying to fight him. That's just what it does. You can go around his ass. But maybe you find that out after the fact. But that's not how can you knock the game itself for its accessibility, because it doesn't tell you that, well, this is a guy that's really strong.
As a new player, you have no idea if you are actually going to be able to defeat that boss, or if it's something that you just have to go through first in order to be able to get to the access to more of the open world. There is no the pairing system can be finicky as well. The dodge mechanic is okay, but can also be improved. There is no other options in the game. There actually is also an auto aim option, which really helps a lot when it comes to magic builds, because you can actually auto target without having to aim pretty much everything. You just have to be in the vicinity of that spell or that arrow or that bow and arrow to be able to hit your target. But it will automatically hit, which is pretty much for like 95% of the time. It will hit that enemy that you're targeting it towards, including the ability to be able to target back and forth. So, but also the camera also gets in the way, and sometimes that auto target can switch to an enemy you can switch.
Yeah, that happens all the time to me. But again, is it something that I would say, oh, well, this is an accessibility issue? No, but that happens to me all the time.
to the enemy by accident, and what you're trying to be able to hit if there's multiple enemies around you can also can be an issue in and of itself. The map is a mess. You have no idea where the heck you're supposed to go.
That's the point of the game, man. Like, see, he's griping with the literal concept of the game. And I've been critical of aspects of this game. You can go see me in my review. But that's a stupid thing to be bitching about. Like, that's the point. It's an open world, and the game says, go figure this shit out. And that's the beauty of it, really. It's like you can go do what you want. It's an open. It's a true essence of an open world game, and a lot of open world games do it by way of gimmick, right? Where it's still linear, but it gives you the idea of it's an open world. This is not a linear experience. It's a world where you got to go find the little maps and stuff to open like the actual map. And even then, it's just giving you kind of what the geography, I guess, of it all is. It's not going to tell you like, oh, there's a dungeon here. You kind of got to go explore. That's the point. Have fun, man. That's the point of the game.
There are these the sites of grace that essentially kind of point to areas you need to go. But if you follow that path, you actually eventually end up on the boss that is one of the toughest bosses in the game. And yet you're supposed to basically go. The map tells you you're supposed to go there to move forward. And if you didn't decide to be able to go explore the world around you, you have no idea
like, I don't know why someone would play an open world game and their first instinct isn't, okay, explore. I don't understand that logic at all.
That's like if you're hitting a wall, your disability is getting in the way, or if it's just that boss is just really tough that you need to go back to at a certain point. There's no quest log, and I know people say, "Oh, just write down notes about it." I shouldn't have to have a notepad or.
Remember, this is all he's talking about. That this is an accessibility issue with Elden Ring. Well, let's not forget that. These are the issues that he's conflating, core game mechanics that he's conflating with accessibility issues, which again would be a quote unquote issue for literally everybody because that's just what the game is.
Sticky notes in order to be able to keep track of where I need to go and what I need to do. You can set markers and you can set waypoints on the map, but there's no indication of how you can be able to describe it or name it or whichever. So cognitively, it is also just a giant mess. That's just the few of the things that basically this game is really inaccessible. However, this is why I love talking about accessibility, because of the fact that Grant here loves this game. Actually, okay, yeah. You know what, Grant? I've just listed off a laundry list of accessibility issues. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
All right, so I guess just we'll listen to it a little bit. I just wanted to more so go through his statements and what it is that I'm talking about in this regards. I guess we'll listen to a little bit, but I just wanted to go over his statements.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
All right, so it's not even worth listening to. So even if he likes the game, it's not worth listening to. He says that, this segment's going on far too long. He said he agreed with everything it is that he fucking said. Okay, cool. So there's nothing that he didn't tell him to shut up. He's like, I agree with everything it is that you said. Okay, cool. With that being said, look, I think gaming is a cool thing. It's a beautiful thing, but specifically because the options exist in that there are different games that are designed for different people. The problem with a lot of the accessibility crowd, and again, we're talking about people that look at core game mechanics and difficulty and something being hard for them as a problem, is that they want every game to include them. And then they have nerve to knock games. Hell, some of these devs get pimped out to have to adjust for them. And that's a fundamental fucking problem, bro. That's a fundamental issue. And now we're in this weird culture where it's like now you're trying to go out of your way to freaking knock someone because the game, it's one thing for a game to have objectively something that is bad about it. It's another thing for you to say there's a problem with it because it doesn't include you and you weren't necessarily the gamer in mind. There may be games that have you in mind, but you're not the gamer in mind when they built it. You can criticize it for what it is and what it attempts to do, but you're on another level of criticizing it for what you wanted it to be. And then you say because it wasn't what I wanted it to be, it's a problem. That's not an objective criticism. That's bullshit. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. That everybody's capped out in some way with certain games. You know, some people can't play. They suck at FPSs. That some people just suck at games that have to rely upon pure reaction speed and and they just can't play the game. They're not like, and that's cool. And then there's other games that really include them and seem to really have the experience with that person in mind. And that's fine. Nothing is wrong with either of those. But these motherfuckers are the type that I think are ruining gaming. I will flat out say that. Just because you want core game mechanics basically changed and altered because you can't get over a hump. Instead of just accepting that maybe you weren't the person that was in mind when the game was being created. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are many available options. And not everybody is meant to be good or play every single thing.
You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.